Well, I got the cart full and I'm waiting on a semi, so I thought maybe today'd be a good day to do an equipment tour for some of you guys. I've done one on TikTok, but you can't really do much on there because you just don't get much time. And I know there's a lot of you that follow me on here that don't follow me on TikTok. So we'll kind of go through this a little more in depth now on the equipment tour and show you guys what we got. Okay, so this is our 2013 John Deere 8285R. This tractor is 285 horsepower. We just bought it this spring. Now this is a 2013 model it's got 459 hours on it now. We bought it in April. It had 349 hours on it. Come out of the state of Missouri. We bought it from Shiloh Valley Equipment down in Belleville, Illinois. The farmer that had this before us had 13 of these and traded them all in at one time. And he had this one and like maybe 2 or 3 more left out of those original 13 that he hadn't sold yet. So this tractor had just been sitting in the shed down there at the John Deere dealership for the last, I think he said 2.5 years. So we ended up buying it and run it this spring, and so far I really like it. Been a really good tractor. We pull a John Deere 1790 center fill planter, and it does have liquid fertilizer on it. And we were pulling it with a 7930 John Deere front wheel assist, and that was a pretty good load on it. So we ended up finding this tractor and buying it, and we have no regrets on that now. I'm glad we did. It's got a better transmission in it. It's a heavier tractor, more horsepower. It just works better on every aspect pulling that planter. Okay, next up we got our 2011 8295R. That's 295 horse. We bought this tractor in 2013, I believe. It had 250 hours on it when we bought it. It's got 1,825 on it now. It's filthy dirty. We've been cleaning out grain bins here. We get down to the sweep augers. I always use the grain carts because there ain't no sense in them semi-drivers sitting here forever waiting on a sweep auger, to get a load. So this just speeds the process up a lot faster. And then that way, like that bin there, I got down, I only had 300 bushel left in it. So I was able to run it on the cart and then go ahead and get the bins switched. Otherwise, if you don't have a cart, your truck driver is going to get that 300 bushel, and then you have to stop and move the auger and this and that, and it just kind of makes a big rigmarole for them. So I just always use a grain cart. It ain't no big deal. So anyway, back to the tractor. Our 2011 8295R. This tractor pulls a chisel plow in the fall and a field cultivator in the spring. And before, we would always bounce it back and forth between this tractor and the 7930 on the grain cart, but I would say this tractor here will end up running the grain cart most falls now. And the reason I always done that was because Henry, my boy, started running the grain cart when he was about, he was 7 or 8 years old when he started running it. And this tractor's got the full power shift transmission, so it was a lot easier for him. He didn't ever have to use the clutch, where that 7930 had the power quad, or whatever you call it, so you always had to use the clutch in it, so it was a lot harder for him to drive. So I'd say we'll end up leaving her on the cart now. As you can see here, this tractor does not have DEF. It's just got the standard old original pipe on it. I've been told that this is basically an 8430 with an R-Series cab on it, is what some of the guys at Deere have told us. And I'm not a fucking mechanic, so I don't know. I'm not going to get into the exact science or details of it, but for the most part, that's what this tractor is. Now, our 8285 that we just looked at in the shed there, it had the great big exhaust pipe, and that tractor does not have DEF either, but I think that's what they call maybe regen or something like that. So I don't keep track of all that shit, don't really know what any of it is, don't really pay any attention to it. But the only piece of equipment that we have with DEF is our combine. None of our tractors have DEF on them. So yeah, this is the 8295R. Next up, we got our 2011 John Deere 9230 four-wheel drive. So this is our big tractor. This is roughly 325 horse, give or take. I don't know the exact on it. I'm sure there's always somebody out there that has to fucking correct you when you throw something out. So we're going to call it 325, give or take a little bit. This is actually the second 9230 that we've owned. We bought a brand new one in 2009, and it had 18.4 46 tires on it. And Deere kind of dropped the ball on it as far as how much weight we needed to put on that tractor. We always buy a bareback where there's no 3-point, no PTO on it. So obviously if you're going to use it for tillage, you need to add some weight to the back end. Well, Deere kind of dropped the ball on what they told us, and after a few years we thought, man, these tires are not lasting like they ought to be. And so we ended up finding this tractor that was weighted right, and this tractor's got 20.8s on it, bigger tires. So we was able to trade tractors for not a whole lot of money, really. By the time you figured, we went 2 years newer, and we went down about 700 hours. And then with the bigger tires and more weight on it, it come out to a pretty decent deal for us, really. So, I mean, you hate to have to go through all that, but it was for the better. I mean, he's going to be replacing tires on that other tractor in pretty short order. And Deere kind of worked with us on it because, like I say, they dropped the ball on what that tractor was supposed to have on it for weight, you know, according to what they told us. So they kind of worked with us on that deal. So yeah, there's our 2011 9230. All right, next up, we got our John Deere 6430. This tractor is a 2009 model. We bought it brand new in 2009. I think it's roughly about 105 horsepower. We use it for loading seed and, you know, just general maintenance, whatever you want to, you know, moving rock, dirt, whatever. It's been a good tractor. It's been beat up pretty good. We got a tree puller for it, and I'll show you what that tree puller is. That's probably been the hardest thing on it, getting in the brush with it and all that shit. It's had a fairly hard life. We got a 2,000-pound weight box that goes on the back on the 3-point. You've probably seen them. You can buy them at John Deere. It's just an empty metal box, and you just fill it with concrete or whatever. So yeah, we put that on the back, and then put the tree puller on the front, and you would be shocked at the size of trees you can pull with this fucking tractor. It's pretty slick. So yeah, that is our 2009 John Deere 6430. Okay, here's our tree puller. And this is called an easy puller. And I can't find the sticker. I think it's somewhere on the back. They've got a website, clfab.com. I think the company that made this was out of, I want to say, was it Clarinda, Iowa? And I may be pronouncing that wrong. But that's where this come from. So it's all quick attach. So you just set your bucket off, snap her on right here, run your pin through the bottom, and pick her up. And then the way this works is this arm right here is stationary. It does not move. You can see it's welded solid. This arm here is on a cylinder. And to give you an idea as to how wide that is, you know, my foot is about 12 inches. So, you know, let's call that, you know, 15, 16 inches there at the widest point. I assume it's open all the way. It may not be. I'd have to look. But nonetheless, however big of a tree you can get in there, you will pull. I guarantee it. It's the damnedest thing you've ever seen. Now, you're not going to go out and do this in July when the ground's hot, or when the ground's hard, and when it's hot out, you know, you just end up snapping them off. But if you take this thing out in like March, right after the frost comes out of the ground, when it's still, you know, not sloppy out, but the ground's still soft, you would shit twice and die if you've seen the size of trees you can pull with this. Whatever you can get through there. I don't care if you got to back up and saw through it to get it in them jaws, you'll pull it. I mean, I've pulled trees that are way taller than this machine shed, and I mean way taller. So yeah, it works pretty good. And you can clear a lot of brush in a little amount of time. And boy, you can make one hell of a nice brush pile too once you start, you know, laying them in there all the same direction and pushing them down. I mean, you can make one hell of a hot fire. So yeah, anybody that's ever looking for a tree puller, clfab.com. Like I say, they're out of Iowa, and they shipped that right to our door. And it's been too long now. I can't remember. I'm wanting to say the whole ball of wax was $2,300, but I just don't remember. But they've got them for just about any brand of tractor. You know, you call them and tell them, hey, I've got a John Deere with the what they call it, the global carrier on the front. You know, and so yeah, they make them for just about everything. So yep, that's it, the old tree puller. Right here, we got a 1972 John Deere 4020 diesel. Side console, not a power shift. This tractor has got, I believe it's around 8,500 hours. I'd have to look. We replaced the tack in it a year or two ago. It's got like 350 hours on it. I kept the old tack. I just threw it in a drawer in the toolbox. I'd have to go look, but I think it's around 8,500 hours total is what's on it. You know, nothing special, just your typical old 4020. This one could use a little TLC. It's been beat up pretty good. Back in the livestock days, this was a feed grinding tractor, so that's where a lot of the hours come from. Anymore, about all it does is run an auger. We used to pull a batwing mower with it, but you know, man, them old batwings are just harder than hell on a tractor, and especially an old 4020. I mean, they just weren't quite made for that kind of mowing. So, yeah, it's been demoted down to light duty. It just runs an auger now. So, and I was always going to tell you, and maybe I did in one of my other videos, but yeah, if you're ever going to cut the axles off a 4020, that takes a while. It's about a 2-hour gig with a chop saw. So yep, there it is, 1972 John Deere 4020. Okay, so here we got our 1994 John Deere 7400. This tractor's got about 4,100 hours on it. I think it's around 110 horsepower, roughly, thereabouts. We bought it in 2013, I believe, had around 3,500 hours on it. And pretty much all it does is run a batwing and just kind of light duty. This was more or less our replacement for our old 4020. It's been a pretty decent little tractor. Like I say, we don't do anything heavy with it, just kind of light stuff. But it works out good as far as a replacement for that tractor. Okay, this is our 2016. No, I think it's a 2015 John Deere S660. I think we bought it in 2016 when it was a year old. This has had an eco tune put on it, so it is running the exact same horsepower as an S670, which is roughly 50 or 55 more horse than a 660. So yeah, we did put the eco tune on it. A few years ago, we were having a lot of trouble. The beans were really green, and they were a bitch to cut, and they were just, I just didn't have enough horsepower, so we give it 50 more horse. But since then, we went to a Draper, and that's helped a bunch too with the Draper, just because of the even feeding and all that good stuff. So I don't know now if we had it to do over again, if we would have needed the 50 horse once we went to the Draper or not. But nonetheless, we got it, and you know, I'm not going to take it back off now. This combine is 4-wheel drive. We always run 4-wheel drives on a combine just because it ain't so much the mud per se around here, but you know, we got a lot of waterways and ditches and stuff to cross, and it's just a lot easier on that hydro on the combine if you got 4-wheel drive. So I really have no complaints on this combine, and we're not going to go into the John Deere Case IH, Fent, Kloss, fucking New Holland wars. I've ran just about all of them. I ran Deere, Case IH, and Kloss, and have no complaints on any of them. I think they're all good. We've got an excellent John Deere dealer 5 miles from us, and that's why we've always stayed Deere. Not really knocking red per se, but they've had a dealership out here that struggled the last few, well, it's been bought out, and I think they've really turned it around now. But like when I was a kid, it left a lot to be desired at this local IH dealership. And, you know, they kind of run a lot of people off, and a lot of people just ain't apt to switching back and forth on colors every couple of years. So they're trying to get it built back up, and they've got some good mechanics out there now, and you know, hopefully they can get it turned around. I mean, it's always good to have competition. So yeah, that's our 2015 John Deere S660. Okay, this is our 2016 John Deere 608C cornhead. This is a non-chopping cornhead. This is just your standard John Deere cornhead. Nothing fancy on it. No choppers. No none of the fancy snap and rolls or nothing. It's basically just the same standard cornhead that they've been making for years. Nothing fancy there. My personal opinion, cornheads have always been a weakness on John Deere. I don't necessarily per se have many complaints on this, but I still say the best cornhead that was ever on the face of this earth was an International or Case International, whatever you want to call it, 1063. Them things were indestructible. They chewed the piss out of the stalks, and they just done a hell of a job. You weren't losing corn, you know, and they were just a good head. And I think Case IH really fucked up when they dropped that 1063, 1083, that whole series of heads. Them were good heads and should have never been changed, in my own personal opinion. So yeah, that's the 608 John Deere corn head. Okay, up next, we've got our 2019 John Deere 730 Flex Draper. We bought this new about right at a year ago. It was right before harvest of 19. We bought it. I really like it. I have no complaints on it. If you go back and look on my previous video, or it might have been 2 videos ago even, I kind of done a little bit of a rundown between this and a MacDon and some of the things that I thought maybe MacDon was a little better on. But overall, for what I do with this head, I really have no complaints with it. It's been a good head. We talked about the finger clearance here on your sickles that you've got to leave on a Flex Draper. And that's, for the most part, that's a non-issue. I mean, it could creep up every now and again, but for the most part, that's never really been a problem. So I would like to run a MacDon just so I can actually compare the two and say that I have, because I've never ran a MacDon, so it may be complete junk compared to a John Deere. I don't know, but there's a lot of them out there. But no, I have no complaints on the John Deere Flex Draper. So that is the 730 FD. Okay, up next we got our 2014 John Deere 1790 1224 planter. We bought this planter new in 2014, or we put it in service in 14. We traded for it in 13, got it in the spring of 14. It's got liquid fertilizer on it, and as you can see here by the openers, we do the 2x2 liquid fertilizer instead of in furrow on this. I showed this on TikTok. A lot of people had never seen it, and it's easier now that it's off the tractor. So on these planters like this, where it's a 1224 or 1632, you've always got to offset your hitch, which it can be done with GPS now, I guess they tell me, but I've never looked into it because we've always done it this way. But originally, Deere had this stupid fucking design where you pull this goddamn pin here, and you got to slide this whole hitch over, and then put that pin back in there, and it's a bastard, and it's a good fucking way to get killed is what it is. So on ours, we put 2 sets of hooks on ours. So there's for beans, there's for corn. Same way over here, beans, corn. And it's actually sturdier now than what it was from the factory, because this end, we didn't add nothing. All we done was added an extra hook in here for this pin. You can see that's all factory, nothing's been cut or anything like that. And then over here we had to extend this side. So it was cut, and then another tubing was slid clear inside there all the way over as far as you could go, and then re-welded back on with another set of hooks. So now, when I go from corn to beans, I just flip my latches on the quick hitch, set the planter down, pull forward 6 inches, crank the steering wheel, back up, pick her back up, and away I go. There's no more fucking around with them pins or any of that shit. This is the way to go right here. It literally takes me 30 seconds to switch my hitch now, if that. So yeah, it's a lot safer, and that's the only way to go. I cannot believe Deere has not come up with that themselves, but that's the way to do that. We had our local welding shop do that, and it's money well spent. This planter has 8,500 acres on it total, and it is actually traded for. We decided this year to jump up to 16 row, so after spring planting season, we went out to Deere, and this planter is officially traded off. So there will be a 1632 sitting here. I think the planter is supposed to be delivered to the dealership out here the 1st of October. I'm sure we won't take possession of it till, maybe November, December. Try to get it home here before the weather gets bad and they start putting salt down on the roads and shit like that. But we'll be in the thick of harvest. We ain't gonna be in no hurry to run out and get it. So yeah, this planter is actually traded off. That's a 2014 John Deere 1790 with 8,500 acres. And that will be for sale with Sloan implement. And it has really been a good planter. I would I wouldn't be scared of it a bit. If somebody's looking for a good planter with liquid fertilizer, that would make you a nice one. This is our 2013 Clark's Ag Easy Load seed tender. It's been a really good seed tender. Have no complaints on it. We got it, I think we got it a year before we got the center fill planter. But I mean, it's pretty much a necessity if you're gonna have a center fill planter for the most part. Been a really good tender. Have no complaints with it whatsoever. We really like this design because it's low profile. You just set your seed box on here, and if you decide you don't need the whole box or whatever the case may be, you just shut the box off, clean the auger out, and you're done. You're not dumping boxes into conveyors, up into tenders, this, that, and the other. You just set the box on, open the slide, close the slide, and you're done. It does have its own towel conductor on it, Honda motor. But yeah, been a really good tender. Now this year, I did have the first problem with this thing that I've ever had was somehow one of these wires got pinched one day down the field, and I just got done loading the planter, and my boy was there. He was sitting here running all the switches for me. And man, all at once, this all started smoking, and I mean, hell, it caught clear on fire and burnt the damn wiring harness clear off of it, so I had to jury rig it to get it through spring planting. So I'm gonna dig it out here one of these days and get a new harness for it and get it all put back together the way it goes. But I think is what happened was that it had somehow got pinched down here in this metal, or it was up against that, and over the years it had just rubbed and rubbed and rubbed until it finally rubbed the coating off the wire, and then it shorted out and caught on fire. So it wasn't a huge deal, but I do want to get that fixed. So yeah, that is our Easy Load seed tender from Clark's Ag in Lincoln, Illinois. Here's you a 1975 Chevy C60. This old hog here, she doesn't do much anymore. This is more or less our rock slash grain, or not grain, but dirt, just kind of whatever, scrap metal. We don't haul grain with it anymore. It just won't keep up with the new machinery. You know, it just don't haul enough, and you know, these old trucks are slow and whatnot. So, yep, we just leave the back end out all the time and use her for just odds and ends. So, yep, 1975 Chevy C60. Next up, we got our 2001 International 4900. Got the DT466E motor in it. It is not a live tandem. The back axle is a tag on this. It would be nice to have a live tandem, but we ended up going with this just because we found it and liked it, and that was the way it worked out. Automatic transmission. I really like that. This thing is just like driving a pickup truck. It really is. It's pretty snazzy. That is an 18-foot bed. It'll haul 525 to maybe 550 bushels of dry corn. 550 is a really big load, but you can get a hair over 500 pretty easy on it. Been a good old truck. It's usually a fight for everybody who wants to drive that, just because it's such a nice truck, and it's just like driving a pickup. So yeah, really good truck there. That's an 01 International. Next up, we got our 94 Chevy C7500. This truck is a gas motor with a stick shift. So it's pretty much about what every farmer had when I was a kid, except they was them old Chevy trucks like I just showed you, the one over in the other shed. So this is just a newer version basically. But no, it's a good truck. It seems to have, you know, decent power. Yeah, it does have a tag axle in the front. And this bed on this one is a little smaller. I believe it's a 16-foot, but it is a little bit taller. So a decent load on this for corn is about 80 to 90 bushel is a decent load on it. So it's a little bit less than the other one. But no, it's a really good truck. Have no complaints on it at all. I'm sure beats the hell out of the old ones we all had to drive when we were kids. This one rides nice, and you know, got nice interior. So yeah, it ain't bad at all. Steel bed. The other one's aluminum. This one's steel. But yeah, there it is. 94 Chevy. That's our Brent 780 grain cart. Typical Brent numbering system. I mean, it's basically 780 bushels, which you can get over 800 on it if you're not afraid to pile her up. Been a really good cart. Have no complaints with it whatsoever. Ran J&M carts when I was out on wheat harvest 22 years ago. I wouldn't be scared of a J&M cart either. But that's the only two that I've ever ran, is a Brent and a J&M. And of course, it ain't like there's a whole hell of a lot to a grain cart. But yeah, they're both good carts. This one does have the adjustable spout up there hydraulically. Light got ripped off, so I do got to get the light replaced. But no, good cart. I would recommend a Brent cart to anybody. This is our 2009 HX15 batwing mower. We bought that new in 2009, and we've got several acres in CRP and stuff like that, so we do put several acres on a mower in a year's time, and just between roadsides and everything else. But we try to keep it cleaned off and, you know, not beat all to hell. I mean, it's hard to keep a nice batwing, but we don't try to mow trees and shit down with them and just destroy them like some people. So yep, the HX15 batwing mower, 15 foot. Okay, next up we got our, I always get this mixed up, I think it's a 2001 Case 580 Super M backhoe. We bought this in August of 2018. It had around 1,800 hours on it. It's got around 2,100 on it now. We don't use it a ton, but boy, it is sure handy when you need it. It does not have the clamshell bucket on the front. I wish it did sometimes. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for what we do, but it would be nice picking up brush and stuff sometimes, but definitely not a deal breaker. Four-wheel drive, cab, heat and air, and extend-a-hoe. But yeah, I'd never really run a backhoe a whole hell of a lot till we bought this. And so I've used it playing around down on my farm, you know, digging out some stumps and clearing brush and whatnot. And boy, that is one handy tool to have if you've never had one. But yeah, it's a pretty good unit. I like it. Next up, we got our Glencoe soil saver. Boy, you don't see many of these around anymore. These got straight blades on the front, and then they got the 4-inch twisted chisel shanks on the back, or well, on every row, I guess you would say. But these were really popular when I was a kid, and then once the disc chisels come around, these kind of went by the wayside. We mainly run this in bean stubble. We don't hardly do any corn stalks with it, just with today's hybrids and whatnot, and as thick as we plant corn, it doesn't do a real good job on corn stalks. You got to watch, they'll ball up on you and whatnot. So we run it in bean stubble some. Now last year we didn't run it at all. It sat in the shed the entire fall and never got used. We run the disc ripper on everything. But I think this is 15 foot wide, I believe, roughly. It's 11 shank. But yeah, it's a nice little chisel plow. We generally pull this with 8295R, and it pulls it no problem. I mean, it just plays with it. So yeah, Glencoe soil saver. Okay, next we got our John Deere 512 disc ripper. This is 17.5 foot wide. Now, as you can see on this, where it's different from that Glencoe, this is just like a regular disc as far as it's got the angled gangs on it, and then it's also got the concave blades on it. So that really chews the shit out of the stalks going through the field. So you got disc blades on the front, ripper points in the middle, and then a disc in the back again. Now this little wing here, it'll fold out during field operations. Now, this tool, I'm not going to just out and out tell you it's a piece of shit per se, but I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of it. We bought it new in 2008. We pull it with a 9230. And the thing that I don't like about Deere is you've got that big shank up there in the middle. So that's going through, ripping a big trench in the ground. Well, then you got these disc blades in the back, and see there's no blades here, there's a gap. So you're actually supposed to set this to where it'll throw a ridge in the middle to fill in the trench made by that point up there. Well, you got to throw enough in that you got to allow for it to settle so you don't have a valley, but you don't want it too high, so you got a ridge. To me, that's one of the most fucked up designs you could ever get, you know, on a tool where you have to make it throw somewhat of a ridge. That's bad news in my book. Now, like I say, I don't absolutely just despise this thing, but it's not my favorite tool by any stretch of the mile. And the bad part is, on a lot of the ground we farm, you know, you got 4 or 5 different soil types in one field. So one end of the field in the black dirt, it works one way. The other end of the field in the white dirt or the clay or whatever, it works totally different. And so you got to find a happy medium on how to set it. And that's what I don't like about it. You know, if you get, you know, my son, 10 years old, I mean, there's a lot of that shit he don't know to look for yet. I mean, he's just not old enough. So you can't just turn him loose on it and say, hey, go down here and chisel this 40 or 50 acres, because you'll have a fucking mess if the person running it don't know how to get it adjusted right. So, like I say, it's not horrible. I don't just absolutely want to take the torch and cut the hitch off of it where you can never pull it again, but it's kind of nerve-wracking when you get to running it. Personally, if I had all the money in the world and could go out tomorrow and buy a new chisel plow, I think I would probably buy a Landau. The old Landau Weatherproofers was a great chisel plow. They done a nice job. They were simple. They were just an all-around good chisel plow. There's a lot of them in this area around here. A lot of you guys have probably heard of Barker Implement. He's just 5 miles up the road here. Josh is a really good guy. They're, at one time, was the largest dealer that Landau had. I suppose he still holds that title, but I guess I don't know. But they're good people to work with, and those Landaus are good tools. So that would be my preference. But once again, I don't absolutely just completely despise this thing, but it's just one of them tools. I've just never been real happy with it. So John Deere 512. Next up, we got our Sunflower 6333 mulch finisher. We bought this new in the spring of 2020. It's actually 2 years old, but it had never been used. It had sat on the dealer's lot for 2 years, and they made us a hell of a deal on it, and we bought it. And now we've only run it this one spring, but thus far, we absolutely love it. It's basically 33 foot and maybe a little bit of change, roughly. It's disc blades in the front, and this is a little bit different design, so it'd be hard to tell with it folded up. So these disc blades are throwing that away, and when you fold this wing down, that blade is going to be throwing back that away. So you're not throwing all your dirt one direction. You can see there's a little bit of angle on the blades there. It's kind of staggered. You could get a lot better picture if it was unfolded. It's exactly what it looks like. But thus far, I really like it. So it's disc blades thrown into a rolling basket, followed by C-shanks, and then back here to a 6-bar harrow. Now, we were a little apprehensive about going to a tool without rolling baskets, just because we've been running rolling baskets forever, and thought, man, you know, I don't know, that's kind of taking a little bit of a gamble there, which, I mean, it does have a basket in the front. So we thought, well, you know, there's guys around here that got them and really seem to like them. So we did. We ended up buying it, and I tell you what, that's probably one of my favorite tools on the farm. It just does a really, really nice job. We pull it with the 9230, and, you know, first pass, if you're breaking ground open fresh for the season, you know, you're only going to run, you know, 6 miles an hour or so. Now, second pass, you can get up to 7 or maybe a hair over 7. Now, you don't want to go just to hellin' with these. With that rolling basket behind them disc blades, you can overload it, but thus far, we've never had no trouble doing that. But yeah, Sunflower 6333. I would highly recommend one of these to anybody. We've been extremely happy with it. And the front disc blades are hydraulic. You can raise them, clear up out of the ground, or however deep you want to run them. We run ours about 1.5 inches, 2 inches roughly. And boy, it really leaves a nice seed bed, and I have no complaints on this tool whatsoever. Next up, we got our Skil D 8200. Now, these are Danish tines. I know some of you guys in different parts of the world here are not familiar with Danish tines. So these are actually new shovels. These are just 4-inch shovels, but as you can see, there's a shitload of them. Now, as for me, I absolutely hate this motherfucker. This is one tool I would just as soon take the torch and cut the hitch off of. Absolutely fucking hate it. We pull this with the 8295R. Now, this was our primary tillage tool up until we bought the Sunflower here. We had an old John Deere 980 that we would run, and then this was more or less the finishing tool. But I've never liked this fucker. We bought it new in 2014, and I just don't like them. They don't move enough dirt with these 4-inch sweeps to fill in gullies like a C-shank will. I mean, these will do it, but it won't fill it in to where you can't ever tell that it wasn't even there. I mean, you'll still have a little impression after you run it. The harrow is absolute shit. It's a 2-bar with double rolling baskets. The harrow is just light as a feather. We welded some weights on it, trying to get it to, you know, stay in the ground better. That didn't seem to work. We've flipped the rolling baskets because one way on these spirals is leveling, one way is packing. So we've done different combinations, had one set one way, the other way, set them both. I mean, it's just been a clusterfuck. I absolutely hate this motherfucker. I will never, ever own another one of these son of a bitches. I don't like it. Everybody talks about, oh, they're a great finishing tool. Well, this one here has been a complete joke, in my opinion. Now, we've got by with it ever since 2014. I think it was one of them deals where you just didn't have nothing good to compare it to. But after running it next to that, it's like, holy shit. You know, there's just no comparison. So, as for me, I hate the son of a bitch. Now, I'm sure there's guys on here that got them and absolutely love them, and that's fine, to each his own, but I do not like it at all. Calling Skil D, 8200. Next up, got our John Deere 637 disc, 32 foot wide. This is on 7.5-inch spacing, or 7, I forget what Deere is, but it's the close spacing. We put a 3-bar Rimlinger harrow on the back of it. This is a nice disc as far as disc goes. It's probably one of the nicest discs I've ever ran. All kinds of hydraulic adjustments on it, you know, for your tilt and just everything you can do from the cab. Been a very good disc. Now, with that being said, this disc is a 2010 model, I believe, and we bought it in probably 2013 from an old man who was more or less retiring about 10 miles from here. He had run it on 700 acres. He bought it new and run it on 700 acres. And I'm going to guess that's about what we've put on it since we've had it. So this is basically a 2010 model with 1,400 acres on it. I mean, the damn thing just looks like new. I mean, it's got some dust on it sitting here in the shed, but we just never pull it. Down here, we just never really have much use for a disc. So it's actually for sale. We had it on Tractor House for a while. Didn't get no bites on it. Everybody's wanting a damn high-speed disc nowadays, where this is definitely not a high-speed disc. This is just your regular old-fashioned disc, you know, that you pulled 20 years ago. But it is a good disc. If anybody's looking for one, I think we had it on there around 32,000 or so, seeing if there was any bites. But I promise you probably will not find one much nicer than this one as far as used goes. John Deere 637 disc. And last but certainly not least is our Case IH 5400 no-till drill. 15 foot wide. We bought this in 2014, I believe, and it was just completely wore out. We bought it on a local auction and ended up rebuilding the entire thing, put all new no-till coulters on it, put all new double disc openers. I forget what all we done. It had a bunch of these seed cups back here, was broke. I don't know what the guy done to it. He just destroyed it. So we didn't change them all, but whichever ones were broke, I would say anything with red paint on them here is the ones that we changed. But yeah, it had had a pretty hard life. We don't plant wheat anymore. I think the last time we planted wheat was maybe 2013 or so. But we use it more for waterways, you know, planting wheat in a waterway or oats or stuff like that. And we would like to get back into planting wheat sometime, maybe if you could ever get to where you could make money growing the damn stuff. But so no, it's just kind of one of them things. We don't use it very often, but it's nice to have your own when you need one. Like I say, it gets used more for waterways and that kind of stuff than it does for actually planting wheat. So Case IH 5400 no-till drill. Oh hell, I was shutting the shed doors and I forgot this was sitting out here. This is our 9-yard, and I don't know, I may say this wrong, Torque scraper. This is a 9-yard scraper, very well built. I've never really been around these much other than this one, but yeah, it's been a hell of a good scraper, and it's very well built, heavy made. Don't ever really seem to have much trouble with it. Now, we don't do construction or get into any of that kind of shit or pulling it with a big tractor. We pull this with the 8295R, and yeah, we've never had a bit of trouble with it. So yeah, that's our scraper. We just use that for, you know, rebuilding waterways and fixing washouts and different stuff like that. So it's been a good one. So yeah, that's pretty much our equipment lineup there. We're not the biggest farmers around. In fact, actually in our immediate area, we're probably some of the smallest. We farm about 1,100 acres. Hell, lots of guys all around us are, you know, 3, 4, 5,000 or more. So, I mean, in our immediate area, we are one of the smaller ones. As far as machinery, you know, we try to take good care of stuff. Our stuff definitely gets used, but it doesn't get abused. You know, we, during the thick of the battle, I mean, yeah, it'll get muddy, dirty, whatever, but once farming's over, everything gets in and it gets a bath and washed and waxed and taken care of. You know, I'm just a firm believer in taking care of machinery. I just hate getting in stuff and nothing works and it's broke and junk, and I don't roll that way. You know, I'm not saying it's got to be the newest and the nicest either, but I don't know, some of these guys, I see the stuff they drag into the local Deere dealer, you know, a combine that's never seen a garden hose even in its life. I mean, just shit falling off of it, and just, it's like, god damn, that would just drive me nuts. Every time you go to work on something, you just end up getting 400 pounds of dirt and chaff on you because it's never had a bath or been blown off. That just drives me nuts. So yeah, that's what we got. I mean, it ain't the newest and the nicest, but it gets us by. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. Sorry it's been so long. I've been out of the loop. We was gone all week last week on vacation, and then I've been scooping out bins for several days, and there just really ain't much to show you on that deal, and that's actually kept me hopping quite a bit. Ain't really had time to do much. So thanks for watching, and as harvest gets closer, I'm hoping we can get some better footage here and get things rolling. Finally got me a drone. I'm still practicing on that. Hope to get that out in the field with us this fall and get some good drone footage of the combines and grain carts and everything in action. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll have another video for you next week. Take care.